believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 after
the
8.
only
Good
way.
morning and welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, live on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and on Facebook. And Colgate would like to remind you that they are doing something to help people get access to water. 150,000 Kenyans will be provided with water when 30 water wells are built through our help and Colgate's help. So what you need to do is just walk into Naivas, buy any tube of Colgate, and for every tube of Colgate that you purchase, then some of that money goes towards supporting the building of the 30 water wells. Water is life. People have no access to potable water, and they're looking at how they can get access to potable water. So Colgate has decided, oh no, let's do something about it, right? Let's actually help people do that. And they're asking you, go to Naivas, exclusively at Naivas, any Naivas countrywide, buy Colgate. Out of every purchase of Colgate that you make, some of that goes towards this project, which is getting water to communities. 150,000 people will get to benefit from this. Our next guest is a member of parliament for Gatanga constituency, and also the Secretary for Legal Affairs at the ruling UDA, Wakili Edward Muriu. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And also good morning to all our viewers. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be with you here this morning.
Karibu sana, Wakili.
Actually, it's my first time to be here.
Yes,
and
it
I'm very
is.
delighted. You guys have been seeing you on the screens. I can see you are live people. I'm glad to have met you. The man with the white beards. Mzee wa kazi. Good to see all of you. Yes.
That young man with,
Yes.
with the white beard.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. It's to give me this opportunity.
Yes. Karibu
And I think
sana.
you're doing a good job.
Asante.
We've been watching you quite closely. The conversations are very, very intensive. That's why I say, let me come over. Let's try to share a few things here and there, and just to educate our people, and also contribute to the national building.
Very good.
Greetings from the people of Gatanga. They are very happy to listen
thank
to
you.
Yes,
Have you come with a tune? You know Gatanga City
absolutely.
is
Just
the home of music. All right? When you hear Gatanga, you hear music.
absolutely.
All the big musicians of Kenya have come from this.
Like who, for instance?
CDM, just starting from those side.
Those ones.
CDM Kirato. Who's the man who sang Gahikadeda?
And Gaikadeda was sung by this guy called there's the Camaros of this world.
Kamaros.
There's the Medis of this world, the DK of this world, the
DK
Kegiras of this
Maria.
world.
No,
Yes.
The song that I know, Woi Marata. Who sang that one?
Aha.
That's
That is
DK.
DK.
That's DK wa Maria.
DK wa Maria. Yes.
That's
yes,
the one.
Yes.
All right.
But surprisingly, that genre is now being taken over by the people of Nyandarua. By a very interesting coincidence. Any new musician are coming now from Nyahururu side. But I don't know whether it's our boys who went and donated their genetics on that side. We are not very sure.
But
we want to reclaim it back.
If you know the composition of Nyandarua, Nyandarua is full of many people from all areas within
Absolutely.
what we call central.
Absolutely.
So it is very possible that some with the musical gene
Went over there.
Yes.
Went over there.
Gatanga became full.
Yes.
And someone bought a piece of land somewhere in Nyandarua
Right.
and donated.
Yes.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
City
you.
has the day's proverb. This week's proverbs are from which country, City?
Chad.
Chad.
Now the capital of Chad is called Jamena with an N apostrophe DJ Jamena. Okay? Now it has two interesting official languages, believe it or not, Arabic and French.
Interesting.
Local languages are really very, very, very many. Now, religion is also interesting. You'd find that 55% of the population are Muslims, at least they practice Islamic faith, and 41% are Christian. Then the others who don't believe, who believe in the ancestors, all that come, but they are small fractions. Now, the president is a gentleman by the name of Mohammed Debi. Not Mohammed, Mohammed. Okay? They have a prime minister and a vice president. Prime minister is called Saleh Geb. This one. Gebzabo. You know their names. You read and you read again so that you don't pronounce it in error. Now, if you think that is complicated, the vice president, Jimatum with a Dgimatoum, T. Raina. That's his name. Right. Now the proverb. The lion loves fish, but hates wet feet.
The lion loves fish, but hates wet feet.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Wakili, what do you make of this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
I think when you talk love on one hand and hate on the other side, that becomes a conjuncture, and whereby there is an element of desire, but they don't want to put the effort, and you also don't want to face the consequences, because if you love the fish lives in the water, and for sure, if you want to go to where the fish lives to get it, ultimately the feet will get wet. And I think in our current situation, I would just say that it reminds me of our situation here currently as a country, whereby Kenyans want development, Kenyans want good roads. Kenyans want water in their homes. Kenyans want own homes. But they don't want to get their feet wet by paying taxes. So, to me, that is kind of where the direction where it's heading to. Because
do you think that's
no
the case,
pain
Mheshimiwa, really?
without gain. Yeah.
Do you think Kenyans do not want to pay taxes?
Maybe do not want is a big word. But I think Kenyans, basically, they are selective in terms of what they want to pay, what you don't want to pay. And we are listening keenly. But again, I would say that taxes is a very, very controversial topic worldwide. And I'm very, very proud that Kenyans now, we are at a level whereby we are discussing about politics, the GDP, fiscal deficit, the debt anchor. Those are the kind of conversation you find in the social media, which if you now pick up the newspaper for last year same time, the conversation very mundane. But now we have become very sophisticated, and I think that's the way to go. It's a conversation which has never unprecedented, and I think Kenyans are becoming more and more enlightened. To be very honest, I went for a function the other day, and when we were having tete-a-tete, someone asked me in Gatanga, "Tell me, where is this finance bill coming from? You mean those years back, there never used to be any finance bill?" So I asked him why. Because I've never heard about it. We've been hearing about budget. They come, they pass. But the conversation was about one day. The sugar has gone up, the bread had gone up. But this time around, we're having a conversation from morning to evening about the budget, the finance bill, about the budget, about the housing, about the fuel and this kind of thing. But my point is that I think the conversation in this country is changing drastically. And we are now discussing the things which build this country.
What did you answer this person?
I told them the budget has been there since the earth was created. It's only that there have been a bit of distraction in terms of the conversation. But again, because previously the conversation has been maybe about this tribe against this tribe, it was more about personality as opposed to a national conversation. And bearing in mind where we are coming from, and I say, look, I think when you start seeing people discuss about their country, about their budget, about the finance bill, that is a conversation in the right direction, because those are tools of development, are the ones who build nation. We are now discussing issues. The budget may not be perfect, but the conversation is in the right trajectory.
It's interesting you should say that, because you've actually mentioned something that I hadn't thought of. Because if UDA during their campaigns didn't make the promises they made, some of the things they said, many people may never have thought were possible. But now, when you then say to achieve these things, we need money, and the only way we can get money as a government is to tax you, people say, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then you say, well, actually, there's a finance bill that is going to bring these things. Wait, on top of the taxes, you're giving us another finance bill. Now, suddenly, we are being introduced to things that have always been the realm of existence, but we've never had reason to talk about or discuss. Even if you heard about it, it's a finance bill and you passed it by. But the public have become more aware of what it is that legislation means to their daily lives, and they're becoming more and more aware with the time. They're sensitive towards paying money or giving money in terms of taxes, and they're more sensitive to what that money is used for.
Absolutely.
So, in essence, inadvertently or not, the UDA government has made the Kenyan public infinitely more aware of their rights. And they've gone into discussing matters they've never discussed before, and in great detail. So for me, this involvement, if we're to look at it, and how it is, we've brought public participation on this subject to an apex that has never been seen before, is a very, very good thing.
Thank you.
I wonder though whether our members of parliament have actually are moving ahead with that time. Because you see, for the first time, 10 years after that parliament came into, the first implement of the constitution proper, the parliament, the 11th parliament, it was a budget-making parliament. And they were discussing the finance bill in 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, all the way up to 2021, 2022, and 2023. They were discussing these things, all of them, from the budget policy statement to the estimates to the finance bills. But it never had this kind of, public glare. And this time there's that public glare. So you know what it has done? It has shown the people that Parliament actually has the power to determine how much I'm taxed and what the government does with that money. The question, now you being a first-time member of Parliament, but even before that, having participated in all these conversations about governance and being passionate about governance, now you're in Parliament and you're seeing what's happening with the people around you. Are your colleague members of Parliament actually understanding the weight of what is happening when people are so actively engaging with a conversation such as budget?
I would say that this stems from, we call it the Grudom in law. This stems from where the genesis of the ruling party currently, the Kenya Kwanza UDA party. Because what you find is that the UDA party is in power not because there's a strong man somewhere from a big tribe, but they came into power purely because of the proposals, the suggestions, and the policies they came up in the manifesto. And maybe taking you back, where you talk about the 2010 Constitution and the like, and the conversation thereon, you find that the multi-party democracy in Kenya has purely been a big man kind of politics, whereby not much thought has been given in terms of what is that man being on the table. It was about a big man galvanizing his tribe, and there you are, and bringing other appendages along the way. But the 2022 election has changed that, because if about 48 or 49% of Kenya Kwanza votes came from the mountain, and there's no mountain man there as a president, that tells you something, that the mountain people specifically were looking for other qualities other than being a man. And that will be the conversation moving forward in this country, because it's not about this is a time for this tribe to eat and the other one is watching. It's about that guy came to power because he resonated with the people in terms of what he wanted to do with them. And I think that is now the difference between the current parliament and the previous parliament. In fact, let me come to the point. Kenyans have started asking themselves, are we being overtaxed? Because whenever you read in the social media, the conversation is about, are Kenyans being overtaxed. There's a hullabaloo about, Kenyans are being overtaxed. The fuel is expensive, the housing levy, the digital whatever. I mean, content creators and this kind of thing. And then that ultimately will settle, because being overtaxed is a factor of GDP. And being overtaxed is a factor of a comparative analysis on what happens in other countries. Maybe two things. Kenyans currently, we are being, the tax level in the 2023-2024 budget is about 16%. In Africa generally, the ratio of taxation to GDP ranges between 6% going all the way to about almost 35. Seychelles, which is the highest, goes for about 32. Nigeria, being also a big economy, the taxation to GDP is about 6.3%. In OECD countries, the UK, US, Norway, I mean, all those developed countries, you're talking about taxation way ahead of about 35%. Now, what does that say? What it says is that there is a correlation between the level of taxation and the level of development. Why? Because when you're taxed, when the tax is not effective, you don't think about it. But when the tax started becoming a serious factor in our incomes, we sit back and ask ourselves, okay, wait a bit.
Where is my money going?
Where is my money going? Why? How comes I'm paying X, I'm not getting Y? And I think that's that a trend which we are that's where we are heading right now, especially when it comes now to people questioning where their money is going to. I'll tell you this, and I think that is the biggest challenge. And I think I've said this in Parliament when I was contributing to the finance bill. I say, look, the greatest challenge we have with the budget is not because we are getting overtaxed, because compared to other countries, we are basically average. You're talking about 18%. But two things. There is what you call the trust deficit. There's a trust deficit because in the past, people have been paying taxes, but they don't get medicine in the hospitals.
Yeah. People
have been paying taxes, but the roads are dilapidated. People have been paying taxes, but there are elements whereby their money, there is utter fraud, theft of public funds. But that conversation only goes for a day or two, and then it dissipates. Now the conversation would be, moving forward, is, okay, you have tax X. Where is our roads? The other day, this weekend, I was I went to this place called Karatina. I met some friends function. A friend of mine, we went to see the parents who are aging, and we just went to see them and just cheer them up. And very interesting. My own friends, personal friends, when they wake up, their first conversation is that now you guys, as you can see, there is that member of parliament for Gatanga here. He voted yes for the finance bill. Now everybody should now wait for a house. All right. Now here are you got my point? Since now we voted for the don't now. Please now, by the time you leave here, identify where you want your house. This member of parliament, we will make sure that he shows us where the house is. That's a very good conversation. Very positive conversation. Very good.
Why?
Indeed, because we are talking about now the actual issues.
No, it's issues.
In long and short, they are still telling you
we are watching
1.5%. And 1.5% contributed by our employer. That's, we are talking about close about that's now 9 billion a year. So you are saying, long and short, the 100 billion a year housing levy we want to see, and therefore we expect a house for each one of us. And yes, that's a good conversation, because you are putting pressure on us to legislate and make sure that you come in the proper rules and regulations to ensure anybody who desires a house gets it. Remember now, this time around, there's no refund.
Back to my question then, Wakili. Do members of parliament actually understand the weight of what they have? Because you see, once you have discussed and debated the finance bill, and this is the understanding, as you say, this is the understanding of the people. The people, there's been lack of trust, and now they're saying, okay, so you've come up with a new housing fund,
Okay.
and you told us we're going to get houses. Now let's wait for the houses. You see, the whole thing here is the reality is not everybody is going to get a house within the next 1 year. There's an issue of managing expectations, but also there's the issue of members of parliament making sure that you're oversighting the executive to see houses being delivered. If houses are being delivered and people are getting houses, then you can start managing expectations and telling people, we got the first 100 people, the next 100 people are getting in the next 6 months, the next 1,000 people are getting in the next 1 year, like that, like that. Are members of parliament actually alive to this fact that they are the ones who have passed to tax us more? And they are the ones whom we've given power to oversight and ensure that our taxes are prudently utilized. Are they up to the task?
I have no doubt. I have no doubt, in particular, with the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament. We are so tuned to a level whereby we have zeroed in that the housing we're talking about is not happening in Nairobi. And maybe it's good to that, I point that out. The housing is happening in each and every constituency. I'm expecting 200 houses in the Gatanga constituency. I've been right after this, I'm going to meet the CS housing, CS Hinga, because we've identified public land whereby we can be able to put up those housing. That's number one. Number two, with 100 billion a year levy, and talk about that's in 5 years, that's over 500 billion fund. We are talking. And the beauty about what you're saying is this: two things. And I think as leaders, again, just to answer your question specifically, we are prepared because we know in the next 30 years, 50% of Kenyan population will be urban. 50% right now is about 70, 80 is rural. 30, 20 is urban. In the next 30 years, 50% of Kenya will be urban. And therefore, it's high time we start talking about urbanization and be preparing for it. And I'm seeing a very interesting scenario here, whereby we every day we celebrate Jamhuri Day. And celebrate the heroes who fought for independence. People who had foresight to sacrifice their lives, their prosperity, their comfort, and go and do something major for the good of the people. Most of those people did not enjoy freedom. They died in the war. And I think we are faced with almost an equal situation, a similar situation, whereby Kenyans need to think slightly before their own personal comfort and think about the next generation. How are we going to prepare ourselves for the next dispensation in terms of making sure that we are prepared for urbanization, that we are prepared in terms of making sure that we start now planning, because that housing comes with planning. And one of the biggest challenges currently we are facing, especially when it comes to the counties, it is a haphazard way of doing things. It's a very chaotic.
Unplanned.
And very unplanned. People just coming up with their own things. I think it's a conversion we just started. Secondly, and again, this is very important. If you go to London today, one of the things which strikes someone who has visited for the first time is the homogeneity or the look-alike of the housing. You ask yourself, how come these people are so... I even had to ask one time, you mean these Muzungus are so uncreative? They are building one style through and through. Little did I know that what they have done, they have come up with standardization of their building. The door which you see in Harlow, the door which you see in Kent, the door which is in Manchester, is the same size, everything. So in terms of manufacturing, they have been able to standardize their manufacturing in terms of what you call housing materials in such a way that people can now be able to set up factories without even an order, because they know for sure the standards in this area. The door is this size, the window is this size, the hedges are this size, the frames are this size, and standardization of building creates a totally new industry which was non-existent, and that is the antidote for importing things from China.
Right.
That's the antidote of creating local industries, whereby most of these things have been manufactured, because there is already a guaranteed market. Because when you project and say these are the number of houses you're going to build per year, naturally, a good businessman will say, I want a piece of that pie, be it creator of roofs, doors, hinges, nails, and this kind of thing. One can be able to predict clearly on how much they can be able to anchor. Maybe let me also mention something which I think is very important for this conversation. 2010 Constitution, and I think is a conversation which most Kenyans have never been able to deal with. Almost doubled the national budget. Remember, before the 2010 Constitution, there were no counties. Today, we are putting up over 400 billion every year to the counties and more. Remember, before 2010, there was no Senate. And today we must suppose the Senate to be able to oversight the county government. Before, the seats in parliament were much fewer. So, and also it created what you call constitutional offices, and which again need to be supported through the funding. It created the independent office of the president, independent office of the deputy president, and this kind of thing. So what you're saying is that we address on the governance structure under the constitution, but the same constitution did not address on the instruments of growing the revenue to support
this entire structure,
that humongous structure of governance. Today, as a constitutional lawyer, if you ask me, I would have a lot of mutilation to do.
Of the constitution?
Mutilation to do in terms of governance. Okay. For sure. And I'm going to be very honest.
Let's talk about that after the break.
Thank you.
Right, we come back after the break. 26 minutes to 9. Our guest this morning, Wakili Edward Muriu. Yes. Wakili Edward Muriu is the Member of Parliament for Gatanga constituency and also Secretary of Legal Affairs at the UDA. He's here telling us about the government revenue-raising measures and why we are seeing what we are seeing, and all these conversations about the finance bill. And he's told us as well about where he went over the weekend, and people told him, tunangojea nyumba. Speaking of houses, by the way, Wakili, are you still selling the house?
That how? You guys, you like fights.
on the contrary, we like
peace. Is the house still in the market or not?
We like peace. You can actually tell us it's none of our business, and we will keep quiet and ask you how you are doing. Yes.
How can such a small issue be in the media for a whole week? You guys, you like, but bottom line is that the matter was settled. The CS left on Monday, the house, because there was no house on sale or on lease, so that is now settled. Okay. And I think we should let.
So it's not in the market. I was organizing.
Do you want to buy?
Yeah, I was organizing.
You and I have a company. Yes, we do, and we buy land.
Right.
We do all sorts of things.
Why not buy a house?
So why not buy a house? And we've heard Karen works very well there.
Yes.
And the air there is very
fresher.
Very fresh. Definitely more different than the one we did here.
And the yes, that has been done well.
Can you make me one of your partners, and we can work together?
Very good.
I think I have something I bring on the table.
Let's talk at the break. 24 minutes to 9.
Prepare yourself for an electrifying experience that will rev up your engines and leave you breathless. The second Digger Motor Show is here to take you on a thrilling journey through the world of automotive excellence. Check out the sleek and sophisticated luxury cars and witness the unveiling of the hottest new models from renowned manufacturers, each one pushing the boundaries of style and performance. Mark your calendars for the 20th to the 23rd of July 2023 at the KICC and get behind the wheel of your dream car. Be ready to experience the second edition of the Digger Motor Show. Come and ignite your passion for cars. You don't want to miss a single moment. To book your space or get more details, call Caroline Nyandieka on 0723 803601.
Watazama nini wewe? Naangalia the couples game show. Jameni, hapa watu wanafikira wanajuana kumbe hawajuani mpaka wafike kwenye mpangilio ndo watu wanajuana. Who's your partner's celebrity crush? Uko sure?
With no doubt.
Hey, utaki kubadilisha wewe?
With no doubt.
Huyo kakubu. Mbona mlishamuni chini kwa simiti na ushiki wa vipi? Jamani, kila Jumanne unatizama the couples game show. Yaani saa 2 usiku ikifika unatusubiria kwa sababu hatubahati.
When we're talking about innovative gardening, we are talking about being creative. You know, being clever. Are we together?
Today I've learned that rabbits have a lot of parts, like the ears, the eyes, the nose.
It's business, it brings you money, it can be a source of income.
Now I'm ready to transplant sukuma wiki.
I love vegetables because they keep me strong and help me to be healthy. Twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are.
Watch Watoto Shambani, Mondays at 4:30 p.m. While the rest of the world waits, just know we will bring you the runs again. And we will freeze in the stands with them, fly along with them. Just know that we will sprint and sweat with them. And never will we be late for their practice. We will meet on the mat with them and be spellbound by the legends we meet. We will witness the haka together and be grateful. We will show them doing it again. And when the time comes, we will bring them onto the grandstand.
My name is Caleb Sam. You are at Financial Hub Forex Academy. We train people on how to trade in the financial markets.
Trading is all about trying to get a reward from the markets. But at the same time, you need to understand that there is some high level of risk.
If you're told that you're going to make money fast, run away and run away as fast as possible. As you come into this market, I tell you, have an open mind, be willing to learn, do your own research, consult the right people, and give yourself time.
Conversation with Wakili Edward Muriu, Gatanga MP, and he's a first-time MP, but he's a constitutional lawyer. And as we were going to the break, you said, look, our constitution actually created a very, very heavy, top-heavy structure that is expensive to maintain and to service, and therefore also meaning that we have to fork out a lot of money in terms of taxes just to run the structure of government. If you were to be asked, you'd break down very many things. What did you mean by that?
Number one, I would have made a very, very serious proposal in the Constitution. Having created all these structures from the new counties, the senates, the constitutional offices, an expanded judiciary where we did have a Supreme Court, now we have one. I would have also anchored an element of revenue. Finding out with all these structures in place, where will the revenue be coming from? And I would have come up with a structure whereby the counties, just like what you call the municipalities of the past, they don't have to rely on the government. on the central government, they need to create money of
their own source revenue,
so that this 400 billion we fork out every year can go to develop road infrastructure and this kind of thing. I would have removed element like services like health from the counties, because almost 60-70% of that money goes to pay salaries. I would have created a county government more like a regional development authority with specific votes in terms of the developments which you want to get devolved. And I give you a very good example. Like we have maybe a mini mirror in the CDF Act. CDF Act, every constituency gets close to about 150 million, thereabout. But with very clear cut structure on what you can spend on what. You'll be surprised, money which you can spend on salaries is less than 5% of that money. Sorry, maybe that's less than 10% of that money.
If you remove health.
No, I'm talking about CDF.
Okay.
I'm saying I would mirror the county with the structure,
CDF.
the CDF, whereby if it is education,
You ring fence.
I ring fence that 5%. If it's road, I ring fence 50%. Whereby you ring fence funding in such a way that in a short time you can see the impact. I would have devolved more development as opposed to services. Because the moment you see, and you can see there's a lot of halbara about the medical doctors being employed by the county government, and you find they even 10 years down the line, the county government has never grasped properly how to deal with those professionals and this kind of thing. So and secondly, I would have done away with the county assembly, and I'll say that in national radio, because
because
the structures because the structures in terms of the mandate in terms of the county is spirit to devolve development at the local level. Something which has already, on a structure already set by the Senate. All right? So, so there is no need of further legislating on a matter which has already been legislated by the Senate. Even in terms of the structure of how that money is supposed to be spent is already in the legislation.
Then why not get rid of the Senate instead?
The Senate is important. Why? You know why the Senate is important?
More important than the county assembly?
You know why it's important? Because remember, if funding is coming from the national government, if supervision and oversight is a national, or both the counties is a national issue, then you must come up with an institution which is slightly higher than the county assembly. County assembly, the role is to legislate on matters at the local level, and that's why you find there is no. I've not had any serious legislation coming from the county assemblies affecting the local people. Because what you're doing is duplicating. Because the same laws they're doing at the county level can be done at the national level. But again, that's a wish list.
No, it's a good wish list because it brings about good debate. So why not seek to ensure that, since it's legislation that brings this about, that the fundamental requirements for a county assembly member and the basic entry point for anyone who would be there and the powers therein, why don't you enhance them? Why don't you transfer the powers the Senate has to the county assembly?
I said, you see, now you're localizing. And I give an example of oversight. Today, we have a gentleman called Odur who has been kicked out by Siaya County Assembly for a number of reasons. For purposes of
alleged,
absolutely, for alleged for faulting on the law. Now, you don't expect the Siaya County to be the accuser, the judge, and the executioner, because remember the allegations came within in the county structure. The complainants are within the county structure. They have passed their mandate. Then you need to pass over the matter to the Senate to say, okay, under the law, the deputy governor can only lose his job on 1, 2, 3, 4 issues. Is there sufficient evidence to confirm that? Remember also, all these things are political.
Yes, they are.
They are political especially when it comes to the local level. All those matters are political, and sometimes the local level, the MCAs, the governor look at that matter at a political level. Are you criticizing our governor?
No.
Is it against the law to do it?
No, but if we are to follow what you're saying, and we did away with the county assemblies and we only had the Senate, so such an issue would go directly to the Senate, would it not?
Absolutely. What I'm trying to say,
yes,
and I think you need to get me right, in the width and the breadth of the county assembly regulations,
yes,
I would do I'll cut a lot of meat, get an opportunity, so at least we avoid duplication. That's number one. Number two, save resources. Number three, direct resources where they are actually needed. And I give a good example. I said, in the past, you used to have municipalities. Municipalities were building schools. Municipalities were building roads. Municipalities were, and they are used to do that through the locally generated resources. All right?
Not entirely.
Well, by and large, there was no, in another old constitution, there was no provision of 50% money going to the municipalities. But what I'm trying to say, long and short, bearing that in mind on the bigger structure, I would have, given as a constitutional lawyer, I would have avoided duplication. I would have strengthened what you call application of funds at the ground in such a way that, and by the way, you'll be surprised. There are certain counties for the last 10 years, you go there, they still look as the same.
Nothing has changed.
They used to do during the current times. Nothing has changed. Not even a paint. Nothing has changed. And yet every year there is billions and billions of shillings. Why? Because the money goes purely to the recurrent. They pay the salaries, they pay the doctors, they pay the MCAs, they pay everybody else, and this kind of thing. So in terms of development, so there's nothing. So the question then, which I want to ask my brother here, was the devolution purely meant to devolve paying of salaries? I don't think so. I think the picture was much bigger than that. But I think that, again, that's a matter of debate. One, we need to rethink, or we need to replace very many things along the way. But I think the bigger picture was to ensure services are felt at the ground. And I also give a very good example. Today, we have allocated 141 billion to the health Ministry of Health. Now, we have also almost allocated the same, almost similar or not more amount of money in the counties to support their health business. Why the two? Why don't you carry the as one, and then you can become accountable? Agriculture. We have a Minister of Agriculture at the national level, which is doing all manner of national activities, importing fertilizer, this kind of thing. Now, is the role of the county assembly of the county government only to distribute fertilizers? Because that's where they're anchoring themselves in the agriculture sector.
Why is the ministry doing the things it's doing? If agriculture is a devolved function and the role of the ministry is mostly policy, if health is a devolved function and the role of the ministry is mostly policy, why is the ministry receiving 150 billion shilling budget? Half of what all the counties are going to receive for everything they'll be doing, running health, running agriculture, paying salaries, doing roads, all those things, running ECD facilities, and yet one ministry has half of the devolution budget. Why?
See, that's a disconnect. That's what you call the disconnect between the law and the application. The disconnect between the structure of the county government structure under the Constitution and the national government role. Remember, those roles were left with the national government purely for policy purposes. And I give maybe a simple example. In the coming to health, there is the KEMSA, there is the what you call the referral hospitals and this kind of thing, and there's the larger disease control, the malaria, blah blah blah, which are domiciled within the ministry, and therefore you cannot question, or rather you cannot fault budget allocation, because there are programs which are being run concurrently with.
Are they supposed to be running the programs, Wakili, or are they supposed to be oversighting and coming up with policy? And so should the Ministry of Health example, in the disease control, should the Ministry of Health be running malaria programs, or should it just be coming with a policy on how to handle malaria, and then the programs are actually run at the county level?
Now, some of those...
Why does Afya House have to go and treat and supply treated fertilizer, not fertilizer, nets?
Some of those funding, they come through donor funding. And therefore, donor cannot engage 48 counties. It engages...
There's a council of governors.
Actually, why can't it engage the 48
There's a council of governors
there must
which
be
sits here, and the donors can engage with the council of governors, which has a structure. The council of governors can then work with the governors. Why do they have to work with the Ministry of Health?
The council of governors is not recognized under the constitution.
Let's recognize it.
That's what I'm saying.
As a law.
That's what I'm saying. There is the legal aspect of it and the implementation. As I said, when it comes to a donor, like maybe you Global Fund and this kind of thing, there's what you call accountability and the access of negotiation. You can't sit down with the 47, 48 countries.
Actually, you
because
can, Mheshimiwa.
Let me finish. Let me finish. And I'm saying what they're doing is right. I'm just trying to say. Remember, my conversation is very simple.
Yep.
Given an opportunity, I would change a lot in terms of the governance. So at least we save funding, the current challenges of funding, and put the money more into development. And I'm saying there is duplication. I'm not just trying to justify anything here. There's duplication of roles. And I've said the role of the Ministry of Health and the role of county government health. There is a lot of overlap and a lot of
resultant wastage
along the way. Same thing. The Minister of Agriculture and the department in the county government for purposes of which again agriculture is the devolved function. There's a lot of overlap. I would do a lot of mutilation, so at least I can create a seamless way of doing things and avoid wastage and the people to get real value for their money.
Am I hearing Wakili Edward Muriu basically telling us that he is thinking of introducing a bill to amend the constitution?
I would say our constitution is not cast in stone.
Are you working on a bill to amend the constitution?
Absolutely. Some of those things we need to bring them on the table. And you know why they're coming on the table? Because Kenyans are complaining. They are saying, look, you members of parliament, you are overtaxing us, but you are not getting value for it. So the question is, how do we then cut the fat to be able to ensure that more funding goes directly to the people?
Do you know about Ekuru Aukot's bill, the Punguza Mizigo one?
I remember it very well.
And it was talking about the same thing.
I remember it very well. And I was as one of the sponsors of that bill.
Trim the fat and let's move money down.
Absolutely.
You worked on that bill.
I was not in parliament then.
Yeah, but
that was in the last parliament. But it is a conversation which is now ready for discussion, purely because of what we have seen currently. We also need, over and above, as members of parliament, interrogate again on our national expenditure, because as we also tell people, kulipa ushuru kujitegemea, we also need to interrogate what's the content of national county government expenditure? How can we be able to make it thinner? Because if the members of public are tightening their belt, how is the governance structure also tightening in their belt to go in tandem with the nation? Because again, we can't. I think it's politically correct also to show that the government expenditure is also getting tightened. The wastage is getting tightened. The corruption is getting eradicated.
How exactly
so that at least we address the trust deficit, which is pushing this conversation, and the governors and the governed can work in tandem.
Let me ask this question, Mheshimiwa. are you telling me that the parliament, this 12th parliament that we have, is 13th, sorry, is actually able to effectively oversight the executive? Because you, as parliamentarians, have done your job. You've passed the bill. There are things that must be done. It is not you who is going to be doing it. It is the executive that's going to be doing it. Everything that you say, changing legislation, tweaking this, those are powers that Parliament has. But can they effectively oversight the executive so that the implementation part, you've mentioned clearly, our problem is with the implementation. Will it actually work? You know, whenever we talk about these bloated budgets that we have for paying salaries, you know, that those budgets are not going to go away soon, because there's this need people have to see their people employed and to earn a salary. That's why in almost, it used to happen in the municipalities. There was a department that was called environment. Environment meant people who swept the streets, okay? If you're a politician and you promise someone employment, that's where you took people. You did not really require any qualification. You just need to have both hands and feet, and you could be able to sweep. It's a need. Now, how do we solve the problem of employment without necessarily burdening the taxpayer? That's number one. Number two, can Parliament oversight the executive effectively?
As I said, taxation is a very controversial, and as you have likely said, it's a chicken and egg and chicken situation. You can't take one and leave the other because they are interdependent. And for sure, what you find is that what is driving all this is because there is also demand on the ground, and I think you've said so. We need to create employment. We need to do roads. We need to give bursary. We need to give electricity. But how all that can be done? But again, to answer your question, it is possible. Remember, under the Constitution, a member of Parliament role is oversight legislation and representation. And I think the current Parliament is in sync with all that. And finally, as a Kenya Kwanza government, we sit, all of us, the president calls us every other time to sit down and walks us through each and every proposal. So some of the things people find us passing Parliament is number one, we have understood the president and give them an opportunity to be able to ask him questions. Why this, not the other? Why that, not the other? And candidly, together with those in the cabinet, he sits down and tells us, we need this now because we want to build the foundation right now. In 2 to 3 years, all that pressure will be able to ease. And I think that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading to. And I hope and pray that we want you as also media to support us. I know there's a bit of backlash here.
No, we support you all
We
the
want
time.
you to support us
That's
fully because, again,
what you see is you don't interpret it as support. But that's exactly what we are doing. We are supporting you.
But
please pass on
we
the
are
message
partners.
upwards.
We want us to
We
be
are all
partnership.
partners in this country.
Thank you very much.
Wakili Edward Muriu, Gatanga MP and also Secretary of Legal Affairs in UDA, has been our guest this morning. Keep it here for more. Time for the news.
Will be done every 3 years. The driver is